See that? The buckles on me shoes? Why, I'm a leprechaun.
Happy St. Paddy's Day, everyone. This is the best and worst of Leprechaun. Watching this movie just reminds me that we need more St. Patrick's Day horror movies for sure. Maybe with the success of Thanksgiving, we're going to get more horror movies based on holidays, which would mean more St. Patrick's Day horror movies, which would be cool. I'm always down for that. But originally, Leprechaun was supposed to be just a straight up horror movie. But because Warwick Davis injected so much humor into its role, it became a little bit more of like a horror comedy, of course, which is one of the biggest reasons why this movie has such a cult following all these years later. And then because of that, they did some reshoots and stuff like that to add some more gore and stuff, just to kind of appeal to an older audience in a sense, and just kind of create that mix of like comedy and also gore and stuff. So the budget for the original, the first Leprechaun, was $1 million and ended up making $8.6 million. It's turned into 8 movies, the 9th movie coming soon-ish, maybe, I guess. But okay, so $1 million budget in this movie. And after watching the movie, I mean, I've seen this movie years and years later, but I've recently watched it a couple times just to get ready for this. And you're like, where did this $1 million budget go, really? I mean, I feel like half of the budget went into that whole sequence where the leprechaun gets his hand cut off and then it like comes alive. And then also went into the transformation melting scene at the end of the movie. That's like half of the budget. And then the other half probably just went to Warwick Davis's salary, probably, I would assume. But yeah, 8.6 million. So they were like, well, we're going to make more of these, I guess. So, and that's what they ended up doing. But, and you know, your franchise has a cult following when you go to space and you get a little street cred, you know what I mean? And then you go to the hood. And then because the hood was so warm and cozy, you go back to the hood again. So great to see that in the franchise. Maybe we'll cover those movies in the future, but 1993. It was 1993 for horror. Wasn't necessarily a great year for horror, but it was, you know, it was okay. Had some decent ones, I guess. You've got obviously this movie, Army of Darkness. Jurassic Park came out, you know, horror adjacent, I guess you could say. Jason Goes to Hell came out in 1993. And then you've got Hocus Pocus, which isn't really a horror movie, but is definitely obviously like a Halloween classic. So you got to mention that too. But, you know, some decent little 1993 horror Halloween kind of movies for sure. The original first Leprechaun movie was actually Jennifer Aniston's first real movie role. She had some kind of unsuccessful small TV roles and stuff and had one uncredited movie role as well. And Jennifer Aniston is after this said, she said in a 2014 Entertainment Weekly interview that this was the worst role she's ever had. And she's embarrassed by it, essentially. But come on, Jen. Things didn't end up too bad for you. You don't have to be so harsh on the old Leprechaun movie, you know? But this franchise is obviously anchored by Warwick Davis, who I was a huge fan of as a kid. Not only was Warwick Davis in Star Wars, he played some Ewoks in the movie. He did some of the walking scenes for Yoda in Star Wars. But for me, it's all about the 1988 movie Willow. That is what I always think of when I think of Warwick Davis. I mean, obviously, a big part of that is probably because he didn't have a bunch of makeup on and stuff. But that movie was always on for my brother John and I. We watched that movie all the time. I mean, come on. The story is from George Lucas. It was directed by Ron Howard. It's just Val Kilmer at his like peak prime. Mad Mardigan just absolutely killing it in that role. But that's what I always think of when I think of Warwick Davis, and I've always been a huge fan of his. Plus, whoever did the makeup for the Leprechaun in this movie and in the franchise, I love you. Such a damn good job with the makeup in this franchise and this movie for the Leprechaun. So good. I love it. Makes the role even better. But kind of interesting that Warwick Davis is actually one of the highest grossing supporting actors of all time. And you'd have to probably say, besides Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones, Dinklage and Warwick Davis are they've got to be probably the most famous and probably the most successful actors with dwarfism of all time. You've got to probably say that. I mean, I don't know. Let me know down in the comments down below if I'm missing somebody, but just two great actors, and love what they do, and love Warwick Davis. And he's great in the Leprechaun franchise. Like I said, anchors this thing, but let's get into it. Let's get into the good stuff. So, what's aged the best? Jennifer Aniston. Enough said. Moving on. It's got to be Jennifer Aniston. What's aged the worst? Well, other than just pretty much the terrible acting throughout most of this movie from pretty much everybody, except for a couple people. One moment for me going back and watching this movie and then thinking back after watching it, it's like, okay, so Dan O'Grady apparently didn't die in the opening like we kind of assumed he did, because everything leads you to believe that he died in the opening because, of various reasons. So he doesn't die in the opening, and then he just ends up in some sort of a home, I guess. And he can clearly talk because Jennifer Aniston runs into him in the elevator. He's all bloody and fucked up, but he's still talking to her. He's having a conversation with her. But yet, after 10 years, he just never mentions to anybody that there's like this little demon guy in a crate in his basement in his house. Like, what? Why wouldn't you say something about that, right? But so, looking back, that's something that definitely seems like a huge story flaw, but it doesn't age too well for me. But best location in the movie. This one was actually kind of a tough one. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Because unfortunately, most of the movie takes place on this farm that's really just not that interesting of a farm. Farms in movies can be amazing and incredible and very interesting, but this one just seems like a generic farm set that they didn't have to spend too much money on, or just a location that, they could get pretty easily. So best location in the movie, for me though, is probably going to be the teeny tiny little part we get at the beginning of the movie. Just that little clip where the leprechaun's in his tower or dungeon or whatever and counting his gold. I know that's kind of lame, and it's such a small minute of the movie, but that's probably the coolest location in the movie, honestly. And I would have wanted to see more of that for sure. But or maybe the hospital sequence. I mean, that sequence is completely silly and ridiculous, but I just think hospitals in general are just perfect for horror movies. So could be that one as well. But worst location in the movie. I'm going to say Joe's Collectibles and Coin Shop. Just because that place just looks like it smells. It just looks like it smells like the old, mustiest old grandma's house. Plus, now it probably smells even worse that his Joe's rotting corpse is in there. That doesn't help. But yeah, Joe's Collectible and Coin Shop. Worst location of the movie for me. But best character. It's got to be Warwick Davis, of course, as Leprechaun. He kind of has that Freddy Krueger aspect to him. I'm sure Freddy Krueger inspired the character. He's not just like a stunt guy in a mask running around. He's scary, definitely. He does that so sinister, scary moments very well, but also witty at the same time. Has like, that little bit of a witty edge to him. He likes to play with his food, obviously. He doesn't just run around just destroying people like a Jason or a Michael kind of in a way. I mean, obviously, like, how damn good of a job Warwick Davis does with this character, the voice acting, just the acting in general. It's just so good. If he wasn't in the movie, we probably wouldn't even be talking about this movie right now. Maybe we would, but it definitely wouldn't have gone on to have this many movies, for sure. But worst character in Leprechaun. Well, there's a handful of pretty bad characters in this movie. It's just not great across the board. But to me, I'd probably say it's Nathan Murphy. The ripped, just the yoked painter guy. I mean, his character's pretty on par for a movie like this in the 90s, but he's just not a character you give a shit about, really. And his acting's terrible in this movie. It's just not good. But, you know, then again, Ozzie and Nathan's little brother Alex are both ridiculous too. But so this kid Alex just bosses around this like kind of disabled guy all day and helps run this painting business. Like, what, in the middle of nowhere? Like, what is even going on here? Where is Alex's parents? What's happening here? You know? But best line of the movie. Best line. I've got a few good ones here. I mean, the opening line in the movie that opens up the movie, opens up the franchise, is classic and kind of carries things forward. Where the Leprechaun says, "Try as they will, try as they might, who steals me gold won't live through the night." Great one. Or how about when Leprechaun gets pulled over by the cop, and the cop says, "Say, aren't we a little young to be out this late?" And he says, "No, I'm 600 years old."
Say, aren't we a little young to be out this late?
No, I'm 600 years old.
It's just the perfect display of absolutely terrible acting from the cop. And also fun, kind of a funny little line from the Leprechaun there. Another good one is when the Leprechaun comes down the chimney and says, "Ho, ho, ho, I'm right here, and I ain't no Santa Claus." And then he just gets blown away by the shotgun. That part's funny to me. My last best line of the movie is a great one. It's a classic one. But it's when Alex, the little kid, says, "Fuck you, Lucky Charms." And he says, "Fuck you, Lucky Charms." And then he slingshots the 4-leaf clover into his mouth. If you grew up in the 90s, you know, slingshots were just the shit. You always had a slingshot. You were always playing with a slingshot. You were always doing things you shouldn't be doing with a slingshot. You know what I'm saying? Just a great moment. Great line. Love it. Worst line in the movie for me is probably got to be when Leprechaun gets Nathan in the bear trap and he says, "I got you in a bear trap. That'll make you shut your... No, I messed that up. He says, "I got you in a bear trap. That'll make you shut your yap." It's like, no, it won't. Why would a bear trap make you shut your yap? He's only going to be louder and more annoying and scream more and talk more. And, you know, like, it's not going to make you shut your yap. So why would a bear trap make you shut your yap? But, all right, best kill in the movie. Surprisingly, for a movie like this, going back and rewatching it, I had forgotten how tame the kills were in this movie. I was hoping for some much better kills in this movie, because in a movie like this, you know, where it's silly and ridiculous, it's about a leprechaun killing people, essentially, trying to get his gold. You want some great gore, you know what I mean? And I get it, this is from the 90s, and the MPAA was pretty much censoring every movie in the 90s pretty heavily, which was rough for us. But the best kill in the movie for me has got to be the pogo stick kill. First, he bites the poor bastard's leg, and then just sings and bounces all over the dude until he's dead with the pogo stick. I mean, yeah, it's completely absurd. And this guy's sound effects sound like, you know, you're stuck in the corner in Street Fighter and somebody's spamming the punch button on you. He's like, "Oh, oh, oh, oh.
This old Lep, he played one, he played..."
And I mean, yeah, for not a single moment did you actually think they might actually be jumping on the guy. Completely unbelievable and ridiculous. But like I said, the kills in this movie overall are pretty mediocre. And so this one's just kind of the one that stands out for me. So that's the best kill for me, the pogo stick kill. Worst kill for me is going to be Dan O'Grady's. He's such an important character in the story, and they just have him go out like that. I feel like they could have done such a better job. Maybe they did. Maybe they had a deleted scene or something we didn't see. I don't know. Let me know down in the comments down below if they did, or if there's some other kills that were deleted or censored, you know what I mean? Plus, what is he doing on top of the elevator? How did he get up there? What was he doing? Was he trying to get away from the leprechaun? Like, what happened here? Plus, he looks like he's got like a spilled cherry snow cone all over his face. You know what I mean? So, bad kill. Could have been better. Best moment of Leprechaun for me. Could be, you know, when Jennifer Aniston thinks that Nathan is stroking her leg underneath the truck. You know, maybe that moment, right? Or I love how in the beginning of the movie, the leprechaun gets shot with a pistol and is like basically incapacitated, but yet later in the movie, when they shoot him point blank and just blow him away with a shotgun, he just runs off. You know, very cohesive script. Very, very cohesive script. But no, really, I would say the best moment for me is really probably the end after Alex shoots the leprechaun in the mouth with the 4-leaf clover. First of all, the movie like finally builds to something and has a nice little payoff at the end, which is great. I also love the practical effects of the leprechaun like melting away and screaming and stuff. That's great. You also notice how conveniently there's like a little piece of the well missing that doesn't look like it was broken at all. It just looks like it was cut out perfectly from the well. That's great. Love that part. You know, just perfectly so you can just fall right in, right? But and then the cops frantically start showing up. It's like, dudes, why the urgency now? Like, it's been like 10 hours. Where are you guys? Where's everybody been? So hours and hours for the cops to show up, which is on par for a horror movie, of course. But yeah, the very end, best moment for me. Worst moment of the movie for me. I don't know. Is it halfway through the movie, just watching the leprechaun shine shoes for a while? Maybe that one. Or maybe him watching the leprechaun play hide and go seek in the woods with the cop, and then for what seems like forever, and then just to have like a basic run-of-the-mill neck snap at the end of that whole sequence. Maybe it's that one. Maybe, you know. Or it could be, you know, the leprechaun chasing Jennifer Aniston on a wheelchair through the hospital with like the cheesy, like sped up footage kind of a look to try to make the leprechaun look like he's going really fast, but we all don't think it looks like he's going really fast at all. You know what I mean? But yeah, those are some of the worst moments in the movie for me. This movie is kind of an interesting one. I remember liking the sequels way more. Yeah, there's some stuff in this movie that's great. Yeah, Warwick Davis is great in this movie. Yeah, Jennifer Aniston does a really solid job in this movie too. And overall, it's kind of a fun, silly horror movie if you're in the mood for this kind of a thing, especially on St. Patrick's Day. It's one you can put on. But I remember some of the sequels being better. Maybe a little like leaning into more of the stuff they should lean into, like the gore and the silliness and the jokes. Because in this one, I feel like I was a little disappointed going back and watching it. I'm like, Warwick Davis as Leprechaun, like the lines are not that witty. They're not that great. There's so many moments where they could have been and they just use like a basic line from him. They could have done better. It could have been funnier. Definitely could have been gorier. So I haven't watched the sequels in what seems like forever. So hopefully the sequels are gorier and funnier. I think I remember them being that way. I mean, I remember a dude getting a bong shoved through his chest, which is fucking great. I remember that. Like, that's pretty hilarious. So I'm sure it's funnier and gorier as we go on. So I'm looking forward to seeing the sequels again. Because like I said, it's been years. But anyways, everybody, again, happy St. Paddy's Day. That is the best and worst of Leprechaun. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. Check out one of these videos next to me if you want more content from me right now. If you enjoy horror content on YouTube, then yeah, definitely stick around because there's plenty of that kind of stuff around here. But again, thanks for watching, everybody, and I will talk to you in the next one.